the music industry over the years has been rife with corruption.
People spend their whole lives mastering something, whether that's playing, producing, engineering, and there's just no money in it. At least not in like the traditional way. You have to get creative, or you kind of have to be in the right place at the right time. It's definitely still possible, but there is like an elite few that are actually making a living just doing this every day. The majority of people are making virtual instruments, teaching, gigging in genres and bands that they're playing in, wedding bands. Like some of the best musicians I know, instead of being able to just like record their own music, they're like in cover bands because they have to play at weddings to be able to pay the bill.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Tellr podcast. We've got another very special guest for you today. We have engineer, an artist, musician, producer, business owner, founder of a company, all around awesome human being, and coincidentally, maybe not, my blood brother. Welcome, Doug, to the podcast.
Hello. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, excited. Since we don't talk enough as siblings, have to figure out a way to monetize our conversation.
I wanted to know that if you guys did catch up regularly.
A bit, probably not enough. I'm a horrible person in that regard. Doug, maybe you have your own opinions about it.
It's tough.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah,
Tough
I think just the time difference, and for the last year I was working in an office job, so it's like I get home at 6:30 and I didn't really want to talk to anybody, but yeah, we might as well make some money off of it.
Yeah, well, don't get your hopes up. We're not making anything off this podcast. I might have hooked you in with false promises of monetization, but really there's nothing to be had here.
Just a good old chat.
much like my childhood, and you falsely promising me things.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that?
We'll cut that. Yeah, we'll save that towards the end of the podcast. Don't spoil people on my lack of humanity out of the gate.
They know. If they're dialed in, they know.
Cool. Well, yeah, excited to talk today. So as mentioned, Doug is a producer, musician, artist, creator, and there's a lot happening in that regard. Obviously, we know each other quite well, but something that I think is interesting about your origin story and just kind of you getting into music, and maybe you could talk about it a bit, is you got involved like in a professional setting in music kind of earlier than most people, working in a professional studio in high school. So yeah, maybe talk about that experience a little bit and how it shaped you as the artist you are now before we get into the artist you are now.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually got that gig on MySpace. At the time Andrew and I had like home recording setups, and he was mostly doing his thing, and I was just very intrigued with what he was doing. I remember you going to the studio to record with some band, and I walked in and I saw the big console and I was like, oh shit, I want to learn how all this works. There was this local studio on MySpace, and I messaged them. I'm like, hey man, from the area, I would love to like do whatever. Like I could mop the floors, make coffee, like whatever you need, let me know. He got back to me and he's like, actually, yeah, I'm looking for an intern. I don't really want to hire someone who came right out of recording school. You should come by. So went to the studio, and he kind of just like hired me on the spot. I was an unpaid intern for a while, but it was a crazy experience. I learned how to record and engineer on a big vintage Neve recording console, all analog. It was the same mixer that was used to mix the Supernatural album by Santana. So like they went and got it from like the Capitol Records studio. So I was learning on just iconic gear. I had no idea what I was doing, but I would just sit in the corner and watch this guy work. Some of the earlier memories, I was 15 and I had my driver's permit. So in the States, the year before you drive, you have your permit. There's some like regulation of like, you can't drive after a certain hour. And I remember being in the studio, we were recording some like Grammy winning jazz drummer that was in there. And I had to like stop the session and be like, sorry guys, my curfew's coming up. I got to go. So it was like that sort of, they really let me have it. Like they'd make fun of me all the time, just like the musicians, but they were very respectful, and they kind of taught me a lot growing up, and really just got thrown right into it. I think I was about 15.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something that I always find interesting, and maybe it's just because I'm a musician, but like the art of crafting and shaping sound is so much different than in any other art form, because you're dealing with something that's not tangibly there. It's not like you're sculpting something out of clay or you're painting something. It's like something we just hear. What is that experience like for you, like dealing with art that's non-tangible? I know it's a little bit of a heady question, but I always find that interesting.
Starting off and like for years, it was more of just like trying to figure out how to get certain sounds. So I wasn't really going as much off of feeling. It was more of an artist would come to me and say, I want this to like, I'd record a live band and they say, I want it to sound like it was sampled off of a vinyl record. And it was spending years figuring out how do I even make that possible. And then once I kind of had the skill set and the tools, then I started going off of what like kind of felt right and what feels right to me. And just like trusting my instinct and making things that I want to listen to, because there's so many people that are doing music that are much better than me. So it's like, okay, I want to at least just like be true to myself and create things that feel good and right to me. That's like kind of how I think progressed as an artist. But it didn't happen that way until I actually knew what the hell I was doing. Because I used to just be stressed out, like, how do I even get this thing to sound like the artist wants? And then it became, okay, now I know how to get there, and then being able to be creative and input ideas and really just shape something that I want to listen to.
Cool. Another, like, so working with artists as a producer, I find very interesting. I mean, I have experience doing it myself. You have more experience than I do, because your role in that position as a producer is different than just like a solo artist or, you know, a singular creator. You're kind of, your job and responsibility is to create an environment for another artist to thrive. How do you navigate that? Like, do you enjoy that aspect of the work? What are the challenges there? Maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. Starting off, there was a lot of challenge, and there still is. I think for me, I kind of know pretty quickly if I'm vibing with somebody. Even, you know, just being in a room with an artist is one thing. Like, you got to be able to hang. You gotta, as an engineer, it's like you kind of want to be invisible in a way, but available whenever they need. So there's kind of two mentalities for me: is being a straight up like recording engineer. I'm recording a vocal, guitar, a drum set, and then like produce. And a lot of it is starting off as an engineer with a lot of these artists and getting a feel for how they communicate. Every vocalist I work with will describe something different, and you just have to kind of understand, like, guess what they're saying. And eventually you pick up their lingo and you say, okay, this round means this, like, you know, EQ wise, like they say something wants to be round, this artist means they want me to roll off the top end or dip the mid range, and everyone has their own way. And at first I don't really know what they're talking about. So I will ask a lot of questions in a way that won't like interrupt the process. And then once you get in that flow, it's really just picking up on their style and like knowing where to insert yourself. Some artists do not want you to really be there much. Even like as a producer, they only want you to do a few things. Some want you to lead everything. So it's like figuring out that communication style. And then once you're kind of in the zone and things are meshing well, you know, it kind of just flows. But there definitely is a learning curve with every artist, I think.
And from someone who's not like music technical, what's something that they might say? Like an artist comes in and they want something to sound like, what's like, would they say like, I want to, this is softened or this sharper, or like, is it something like they're not using the same technical language as you, so you're trying to translate between that and what, like changing, like dialing in the knobs or whatever it is?
Yeah, for sure. It's like both that, as well as like some people will be like, you know, roll it back to, and like some they mean actually like go forward in the song, some mean go backwards. So like the first couple of sessions, you're like, oh fuck, like do they want to go forward or back? So there's like that, even just like structurally, you know, when working with like a vocalist or, you know, like rappers that I used to record a lot of, they are so like, you have to be so ready to go that any sort of disruption like that is like not very good. So there's that. And then so like the actual like creation, recording, and then I'm more on the production side. Yeah, people will say, I want this to sound shiny, bright, larger, bigger, warmer. Like, what does that even mean? Those aren't, I mean, there are some plugins that say like the warm knob, but that's not actually what they mean. Everyone kind of has their own interpretation of it. And it's definitely a struggle to like figure out what it is. But then once you kind of catch on to one area, you can kind of translate that to everything else they're saying to an extent.
Andrew, is that what you meant by how is it what's it like to craft something that isn't tangible? Is that what you mean?
Well,
Or no, that's something different
I
because
just mean that like audio, like sound, you can't hold it, you can't touch it. It resonates inside of you as a listener, as an audience, which also makes it different than any other art form because no other art form physically, you know, vibrates your body in the same way. But I'm just talking about like sound. Like it's interesting working with a medium that you can't see it, you can't touch it, but yet you feel it on an emotional level just as deep as any other art form or more, depending on who you are and what your taste is. So that's what I kind of meant by intangible.
Okay. But there's another level here, which is like everyone's language. Like if you weren't taught like a technical terms for things, I can imagine people trying to describe it in all these weird and wonderful ways.
Yeah, and everyone's different. Like when I was starting at that studio, like some producers would actually give me like sheet music and I'd have to like follow along. So luckily at the time I was at a more rudimentary level, but I was reading sheet music and I was playing for guitar. So like I had to actually follow along. Some have no music theory background at all. And some of them are the best musicians as well to work with, which is funny, but they have a totally different language. So it is interesting. And the tangibility side of it is I was always taught when I learned so much at this studio of like not using your eyes. Like we used to have sessions, people would leave and he would like shut off, the main engineer would turn off the computer monitor and he would say, okay, just go on the board and just use your ears. I don't want you looking at what's happening on the screen. Yeah, you could see the waveform, you could see what's happening, but just like listen and actually try making decisions based off of what you're feeling and hearing versus what you're hearing or versus what you're seeing. And a lot of people are, you know, they're so UI intensive now, all the digital music software, that it's a big reason I like all the analog stuff is like you're not looking at a screen and it's actually listening to say, okay, the meter is peaking, but this sounds fucking cool. I should keep spiking this when technically, you know, you shouldn't be going into the red there. So I think that's kind of how I connect to what you're saying as well.
Yeah, that transitions nicely into this kind of, I'll call it obsession with analog gear that you have, and a lot of artists, producers have. What is it about working with, you know, we can see behind you, there's a few pieces of gear. I can see the Fender Rhodes, that electric piano. You've got the Juno synthesizer. You've got a tape machine, a few other things. What is it about all of this vintage gear from, you know, 30, 40, 50 plus years ago is compelling for you as a creator versus just, you know, we know examples now of like Madlib, right? He produces entire records on his iPad, like arguably classic, you know, records that will stand the test of time. He's doing it on his iPad wherever he is. Why do you feel like you need a studio full of gear?
Yeah. Outside of just like, if I wasn't buying this, like what else would I be buying? Like TVs or video game? I don't know. It's like you think of that if you're not a musician, like I'd probably be spending my money elsewhere. But
Meme coins. Sorry.
A lot of it actually came starting again, like that first studio experience was like treating the studio as an instrument. And before I got into recording, I really started because I wanted to be able to record my own music, make my own music sound good. Then I got so invested into the technical side that I actually like didn't even make music for years. I just strictly focused on engineering and mixing and production, barely wrote anything. So during that time, it was a lot of like, I wanted to play an instrument in a way. And to me, that was like the studio. Everything kind of has its quirk. I've always been fascinated by gear. I remember like Andrew and I had a Tascam 4-track cassette Porta Studio. Actually, I still have a version of that. Essentially a 4-track cassette recorder, and just like being able to overdub and like doing all these things, being young and like on a physical medium was super thrilling to me. And then when I was doing a lot of recording, I remember the first time I recorded an actual Fender Rhodes, and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing sounds insane. Like I'd used the virtual versions of them.
And just for a moment, explain what a Fender Rhodes is for people listening, and for Cody here.
Yeah. So this is a Fender Rhodes. So it's a electric, or it's a piano. It's actually acoustic. Every single note has a pickup on it. So it's a fully acoustic instrument. It's kind of created like a piano. Besides, there's a pickup, and it has some electronics as well. It's like Stevie Wonder used it. This one's from 1971. Got a very iconic classic sound to it. And a lot of it is every single Rhodes has its oddities. You know, some are like, to tune it, I have to take this tuning fork, and on every single key, I have to open up the lid, and there's a little like spring, and I have to move it up and down until it tunes properly. So it's a pain to get it to be perfectly in tune, but it can happen. But the beauty of it is like some notes may be a little sharp or flat, but it gives it this character. Also, the, you know, digging into the actual keys versus a like a MIDI keyboard, which is essentially just a keyboard that doesn't produce sounds on its own. It's just keys that trigger something in a computer. Versus this is creating sounds. There's just so much character to it. And I remember the first time recording that, it sounded so incredible that I was like, okay, I have to get that. Then you get that and you're like, okay, what's next? You know, the Juno sounds are iconic. The synth here, you know, like Stranger Things was made on, it was either a Juno or a Jupiter, but kind of the same family. And just the physicality of it and the tone just really can't be beat. Like the virtual stuff is getting very close, but there's something about being able to adjust things without a computer in real time and just like capturing the quirks. Same with tape machines. The reason I like it is because things get messed up. Things will warble. The sound will maybe go to the left speaker unintentionally. And like, you can't create that stuff as organically in a computer. You have to be more intentional, where this is just like this breathing mechanism that's just doing its own thing. And I'm just fascinated by capturing those moments that feel more human, especially as all music is starting to feel, not all music, but a lot of music is starting to feel very similar. So to me, it's like a way to really just connect more with it.
Just let me ask, the Fender, it's called a Fender Rhodes.
It's like
Rhodes.
RHODES.
So when you hear reference to that, it's just this type of piano keyboard. It's because actually I thought it was a guitar, because you hear that reference in movies, and I've heard people talk about like the characteristics, like this one's a bit messed up or whatever. This one has a flat something. I've even heard that, but I thought it was a guitar.
Well, Fender also makes guitars. So Fender.
Okay.
And Doug, I'm sure you know more about this, but they kind of discontinued making these electric pianos. The one that Doug has, I don't know what year, but they're not making them anymore. And there's a few different versions of them. There's like the Mark I and the Mark II. It's just like different eras. Like one was popular in the 80s, one in the 70s.
They actually just made a new model. It's crazy. It's got like the clear, it's all black, but it's like clear. It's pretty wild.
Like you can see the what do you call it? What are the key? Not the keys. The thing that resonates. What is that called? The tine.
Yeah, the tines. Yeah, it's made very similar to a piano, which is like, it was also when I bought this, they're pretty expensive. I got this used for like $500, and I was working at the site Reverb, which is like a marketplace for music gear at the time. And there was this dude I worked with that was like a genius with every piece of gear ever made. And I send him the listing. And I was like, hey man, do you think I could fix this? He's like, oh yeah, just do X, Y, and Z. It's super easy to work on. So that was kind of my first entry into starting to restore instruments, is this Rhodes. And I've been working on it for like probably 4 years now, because it's so modular and easy to work with. It takes a lot of time, but the way it was created it is very easy to get in there and learn how to fix things on your own.
Do you think them coming out with a new version kind of like means something, like culturally, like it's kind of like vinyls coming back or something? Is it like, to the people who know, is that like, I don't know, a tip of the hat or something? Or is it just kind of like, okay, they just wanted to make another one now? It's time.
I mean, for those that can afford it, I'm sure they're stoked. I think all the big studios and all the major label artists, they're probably still using the real stuff. For the average musician, we can't afford the new stuff because it's so pristine, like it's perfectly in tune, like everything is so perfect, where this is, what is it, 50 something years old now. So there's definitely a benefit of getting a new one, but I think the market is definitely diminishing.
Yeah.
This transitions into kind of virtual instruments a little bit and all of that. I want to save that conversation and stick around if you're watching this, because Doug has built his own virtual instrument and it's super cool, and he's going to talk about it in a bit. But I kind of want to focus first on monetizing your work as a creator, as a musician specifically. The music industry over the years has been rife with corruption. Like, this is nothing new. It's just changed over time. Now the music industry is largely, arguably, run by these streaming platforms that most consumers, most mainstream audiences that's where they consume their music, on the Spotifys, the Apple Musics, the YouTubes of the world. So, Doug, just over our lifetime, things have changed massively. You mentioned getting your first job on MySpace in the music industry, and that's super interesting because MySpace was kind of like the first big social media. So your professional career was arguably launched in the early stages of this kind of social media world. Now, decades later, not quite decades, but we're years later, and the industry's transformed. So just getting into this topic of making a career as a musician, like, what are your current thoughts on the state of streaming, the state of being a professional musician? What's the good, the bad, and the ugly there?
It sucks. I mean, what other professions, because it is a profession in industries, like, do you have to like do completely other shit to survive? It's like people spend their whole lives mastering something, whether that's playing, producing, engineering, and there's just no money in it, at least not in like the traditional way. You have to get creative, or you kind of have to be in the right place at the right time, catch the right ears. It's definitely still possible, but there is like an elite few that are actually making a living just doing this every day. The majority of people are making virtual instruments, teaching, gigging in genres and bands that they're playing in wedding bands. Like some of the best musicians I know, instead of being able to just like record their own music, they're like in cover bands because they have to play at weddings to be able to pay the bills. At least they're still making music, but it's very difficult. On the flip side of that, it is a lot easier to get discovered and even just like get people to listen to your music. Both the technology has gotten, you could record stuff on your phone and release an album. Pros and cons, but I do think as an industry, it is extremely difficult to just like straight up do your thing and make a living. Like you are kind of forced into these other avenues.
Do you think it's, because you bring up an interesting point of like, there's pros and cons of the situation. Like everyone has a platform now. If you want to go grind and figure out how to get your music in front of people, there's nothing really stopping you from doing that. If you have an iPhone, you could make something happen. Or if you could borrow a friend's iPhone, even like if you put in the effort, you could do it. Whereas 50 years ago, I have a bunch of data here on like, or just information on kind of corruption across the music industry. There's everything from payola in the 1950s, which was essentially when the mafia was controlling radio streams, radio play, right? So like DJs were getting paid under the table to push certain records. If we compare it to back then, breaking through then was arguably harder than it is now, because a small group of people really, really control every channel. Whereas now, if you push, you have to get creative, but if you push, you can break through. So it's a little bit of like a give and take situation.
You think there's more people that want to be musicians now or less? Like overall, I know it's a hard thing to maybe answer, but
I think there's more that want to and are able
Yeah.
to. And I think once they start doing it, they go, okay. I'm sure they enjoy doing it, but as far as making money off of it, I think it's just become more of a hobby. Even like working at Reverb when COVID happened, the amount of instrument sales, because people were just like sitting at home, had nothing to do, they started buying a guitar or a keyboard. So it's definitely like as a hobby, I think it's more accessible. But I do think, it also is romanticized in a way, like, some of these social media musicians make it seem like, you could just pop off, which it does happen. Like someone like Lil Nas X, like he got huge off of, I don't know, what was it, like Discord or Twitch or something like that.
Yeah, even that was like 6 years ago now, right? Something like that.
Yeah. And like it's possible, but the payola thing, it's super interesting you bring that up, because I almost feel like it's still happening to an extent. It is still so much pay to play, even like with these Spotify playlists. Like you have to spend money to get on a playlist. They're not, a lot of them aren't picking them up because they like your music. You're just, tossing them some money. Obviously it's a different scale. Before there was, like you were mentioning, there was just like a select few that were getting through, but there's still like some version of payola that's happening now in my mind.
Yeah, can you
maybe more complex.
Yeah. Can you explain that process a little bit, like modern day payola with the playlists and Spotify? Because like Spotify controls so much of the industry.
Can I just hold? Can we just
Yeah.
hold up before we go there? Can we just like for people who aren't in the know, right? I'm a Spotify user. I pay for Spotify because I don't know, it's really easy and convenient, and I get all the songs, and I don't have to have all the songs. I just listen to what I want, right? So then, musicians get paid per stream, like globally, right? And then I know that there's like different types of royalties, but just like keep it simple. It's like when somebody plays it, the artist gets some little fraction of a cent for the play, right? And then from there, you have to kind of, if you're not, you can be discovered, like you can enter a program on Spotify and like be discovered somehow, but then you have to give them more. Or there's like alternative ways with like somehow doing the playlist and stuff, right? So just wanted to set the scene there because maybe like people don't realize, and I looked into a little bit just before this. Did I miss anything? That's pretty much it. They pay sweet fuck all per stream to the people who actually make the music. I read it was like 14% of their revenue, up to 14%, which I don't know if that's, yeah, it seems low, but I don't know.
Yeah, and probably like 80% of that 14% is like 10 musicians or artists.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I made that number up, but it's something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely like, because you know, if you like Universal Music Group, I think maybe the biggest record label, if not one of the top few biggest record labels, they have more ability to negotiate with Spotify than like someone like myself or Doug or an independent artist, because you know they're holding the ownership, the masters of Beyonce and Taylor Swift and Kendrick Lamar and like all these major artists, so they can negotiate a much better deal for themselves and their artists than an independent artist can. So that's why that gets into this payola a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to like, I just wanted to.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
It's good to provide that context. Doug, do you have any thoughts on this Spotify kind of power play?
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with it. I mean, here's my thought process. I still use Spotify, which I get paid crap from it. I mean, there's songs that I've produced or co-produced that have millions of streams, and I've gotten barely anything. Like when I get Spotify money or streaming money, it's like, okay, I'll go buy a sandwich today. It's not like this is gonna change my life in any way.
We know the sandwiches you eat are extravagant, Doug.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what type of sandwich are we talking?
They are very expensive sandwiches.
Do you use Spotify as a user, just to kind of like, I just want to see this balance while you.
Yeah, and I've seen benefits on both sides. Like as a user, I do really like their personalization models that they have, and just discoverability is huge. Like so many artists I found are through, you know, you start listening to some album and then it goes on to play something else after. You're like, oh, what's that? Or there are some great playlists on there. And on the flip side, I've had songs get picked up on playlists and I'll get, you know, tens of thousands of streams in a week or two because it got picked up. So people are discovering me. One, like I'm not getting really money from that, but to me, it's like, okay, I want to grow my fan base. So that does help me there. You know, a lot of musicians will say, oh, I'm only going to listen on Apple Music, or I only listen to Tidal. To me, the whole thing needs to be fixed. Like, what's the difference of a couple fractions of a penny? You know, to me, it's like the user experience on Spotify I prefer more. And I'm sure I'll get some hate from other musicians on that, but it's like, I prefer it as a user until the whole thing shifts. Like I'm going to use what's most convenient. And also when I'm sharing music on social media, I know the majority of people are listening on Spotify. So being able to share links through Spotify, I get, you know, higher engagement than sending out a Tidal or Apple Music link.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. Like, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, like, and it's not just musicians, honestly, but it's almost like the main thing that musicians do, which like composing, writing songs, now has to be given away for free in order to market and monetize something else, whether it's tickets to a live event or some type of merchandise or some type of virtual instrument or sample pack. Just, it's like the main thing is like, here, have this for free so that I can scheme up some other way to make money around this. And I liken it also to comedians these days too, with like YouTube comedy special. Most major comedians are going right to YouTube to release a comedy special for free that they worked on for years, and they toured and they refined it, and they just give it away for free in hopes of getting enough views that will inspire people to then go buy tickets to their live event later. So it's fascinating to see that.
Or they'll get a deal on Netflix or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. Really, like the big. Oh, sorry, go for it.
No, go ahead.
Well, the Netflix thing. There's like three main ways in actually making music outside of like, sample packs and teaching. Either there's touring, selling merch, and licensing. I've made more money with one song being licensed than millions of, I think like the streams that I have like credits on and points on, probably like over 10 to 15 million collective. And I made infinitely more money on one song getting licensed through a larger television sort of network that I had a small percentage for being a producer than all those tens of millions of streams. So it's just like, it just shows, a lot of the people that are making money, they're getting, big sync licensing deals and things like that. You can get one licensing placement and that could set you up for the whole year potentially. So there are those opportunities.
Can you explain that process a little bit, like getting a licensing deal, like what that means and what that process looked like?
Yeah. So, it's essentially anybody from Netflix to Hulu to, I've had one of my songs was licensed to be used on the runway on Paris Fashion Week. A brand wanted to use the backing music. So it was like a deal of this one specific song. They wanted to play it on the runway and also use it on this like short video commercial sort of deal. And they're paying the artist, to essentially have the legality to use that. So anytime you hear any song in a movie, that artist is making some good money on that. There's some musicians and artists that strictly just make music for sync licensing. So they'll work. There's some companies, I actually used to work for one in Chicago for a little while, that builds out their own libraries and databases of composers. They say, hey, this genre, like chill hop 80 BPM in C major is really hot right now. And they like hit up all the chill hop producers and they have this library, and they, Coca-Cola, whoever hits them up, and then they give them all these options. So it is extremely curated, and there also almost is like some payola sort of vibes going on there, where there's some like bigger companies owning a lot of it, but a lot of these big bands get hit up directly, or they work with their agents. And that's like the people that I know that are really like successful in making money in music. It's pretty much all through licensing.
It's not like the average path though, is it, that you kind of conjure up when you think someone's going to become a musician? Like, I want to be a musician. It's not normal, right? I mean, it's like, it's not the main path that they think of for themselves.
For sure.
Yeah, I think kind of, especially from like a non-musician mindset, like that main path that you call it is like such a small percentage of professional musicians. Like, now everyone's making money through other avenues, maybe trying to position themselves for that main path. I mean, some people probably find their niche in some type of music licensing work that they just love doing that and they're satisfied doing that. So one thing that we kind of brush past that I just want to touch on a little bit, because I think it's interesting, is the Spotify playlist like method. Like, how do you go about getting your music on a Spotify playlist?
Yeah, and I've recently did a bunch of research into this. So anytime you submit a song or an album for distribution digitally, there's different platforms where you have a song and they'll submit it to everywhere. So, Spotify, Apple Music, Napster, which still exists. Hell yeah. All those different platforms.
I think it's Napster Web3 now, or no, I'm thinking of LimeWire. Anyway, nice. Sorry. Yeah. I saw them in Singapore. Yeah. So I got a free hat from them that says LimeWire, and
hell yeah.
I don't even know what they do. Cool. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. Napster's cool.
So there's kind of two different ways. One, when you're about to release something, when you submit it and you need to give it a certain amount of time before it goes live. So it's something like they recommend doing it a month before you submit it, a month before the publish date. And then you're able to log on to your Spotify artist account and submit it to the Spotify playlist curation team. You fill out all this information, different genre, instruments, and there's like different curators who have given advice of like, hey, you should say these are some hot tips right here. Actually, like when you submit it, you could write, hey, this will be a really great fit for the deep focused playlist, or you name specific playlists, and whoever is listening to it, and apparently they listen to every submission, if they see that, they'll go, okay, actually that may be a good fit. They'll send it over to that playlist curate. And you could do that beforehand. I think I've only had one song I've worked on. It wasn't my own that actually got picked up that way. Or it can happen after it's released and, you know, something starts to go viral, it gets added to playlists. But apparently the way their algorithm works is if they like something, they'll try it on a really small playlist, and they'll go, say the three of us are on the playlist and, you know, my song is on there and we all listen to it. Song 1, we all listen to it. Song 2, submitted by somebody else, none of us listen to it or we skip it right away. Song 1, they're going to go, okay, this is seeing some traction on this playlist. Let's try sending it to one that's a little bit bigger. And they keep just doing that. So like over the course of a couple days, some people have songs that go from like a playlist of 50 people to 1 million people because they're just kind of testing it out little by little. That's kind of one way to get in. And then the other is like, yeah, if something goes viral, sometimes people will just add it to a playlist. And then those are like the Spotify sponsored, you know, they're actual the Spotify playlist. And then there's a ton of just independent playlist curators that almost all of them charge money to submit things. You spend $1 or $3 and then it gets on. Maybe you get 20 streams, maybe you get 2,000, kind of vary.
Wow, there's just this whole game to it that you don't see. That's wild. And do you think that someone could get enough streams this way to make money though? Like enough money? Because like 1 million streams is like $3,000. I just quickly calculated. I think could you get 1 million streams doing this kind of hack way?
There was recently a lawsuit. I forget the guy's name, but somebody generated like thousands of songs using AI and was just uploading them to Spotify under different artist names. And he made like $1.2 million over the course of a year, just uploading thousands and thousands of you know, songs that just did kind of smaller streaming numbers. So his name was Michael Smith. He's from North Carolina. He was charged with using AI to create hundreds of thousands of songs and streaming them with bot accounts. So this is a whole other like corruption aspect of Spotify, is there are bots in Spotify being used by people like Michael Smith to stream as AI, all the way to Universal Music Group to inflate their streaming numbers for like there's something happening with bots on that platform that.
Well, I just to give you some example, I have a playlist that I do for my cafe, and I was working on adding some more songs to one last night, and I checked one of my old playlists that I actually made collaborative because I was testing it out. I thought, oh, maybe some people who come to the cafe regularly would like to add some of their own music to it. I don't know what I was thinking at the time, but that was my, and I looked at it and it had 375 hours of play. And I was like, there's no way I would have added that amount of songs to it. And I looked through and people had just added, I don't know if it was bots or what have you, but it was just so much. And I remember at one time walking in and thinking, this is not my playlist, and checking it, and it was. And then I switched to another playlist. But I didn't go through and find out why. And I think it is because of bots or something. They've found, oh, this is an open collaborative playlist with lots of plays, and not lots, but we just play it on repeat.
Yeah, your playlist was taken over, adding a bunch of AI songs with Donald Trump voiceover on top of it. That's,
You're joking.
No. Yeah. Joke. Yeah. I'm just thinking of how I can sabotage your playlist. So when people walk in,
well, no, I didn't do no more collaborative.
But now, if you're getting a ton of streams, you can charge people to add, if you make it non-communal, so only you have access. You know, you could run the payola game, Cody. Doug and I can pay you to stream our songs on your playlist. And as Doug mentioned earlier, we accept payment in sandwiches, so I think it's perfect for your.
Okay, done.
It does bring up a really good point though, of like, I think you can make money, but then I always go back to doing it that way. You're like making a very specific type of music that probably you don't want to make.
And this is so interesting. Yeah.
I actually like tested this out. It wasn't like totally things I didn't want to make, but once I started figuring out how this whole Spotify playlist system worked, I I used to just release like instrumental beat tapes, so just no vocals, instrumentals as like full albums. And I tried doing them as singles and spacing them out where I would kind of follow the Spotify recommendation of at least 4 weeks ahead, crafting these, you know, these letters for the playlisting, and really kind of crafting some of the songs that I thought would be more fit to like lo-fi playlists. And one of those songs has more streams than music I've worked on for like years. So it's kind of like demoralizing a bit, because it's like, okay, I probably could do this, but I didn't really enjoy it, the process, that much. That's not like why I make music. So it's a very like deep path and question, I think, to go down, is like, it's probably possible, but like, what is that actually doing to music as an art form?
Yeah, I would argue that it's happening across art, across the board. I mean, probably other artists or just general people are more familiar with this, just like on Instagram type videos. It's like and we've talked about this in a previous podcast, like creators have to now consider how to create art for the algorithm almost more so than they do for their own audience if they want to try to break through, you know. It's
for discoverability.
Yeah.
For discoverability. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you even talked about it, Doug, with how Spotify is choosing to kind of push songs from playlist to playlist. It's all algorithm based. If your song performs well with the algorithm, they're gonna keep pushing you, and if it doesn't, they're not gonna keep pushing you. And it's like that across every social media platform. So it's really the same playbook, just a different medium of art.
I looked at this and it said that for Spotify, and this could have been updated, I'm not sure, but it's for Spotify to count a song play as a stream, it has to play for 30 seconds. So it like incentivizes the artist to push, you know, some really catchy stuff in the first 30 seconds. It incentivizes them to put choruses earlier in the songs and shorten the songs, because if it plays all the way through to the end, it triggers like a recommendation engine, points for the recommendation engine. So it's like songs get shorter with more choruses pushed, you know, more choruses repeating. And it's kind of like what you said, Andrew, like engineering music, engineering art for the algorithm and not for ears.
And think about how this has like an unconscious impact on culture, like just us as a society. Like we're consuming shorter content with less substance, like a lack of ability to like consume something that's longer than a couple minutes. Like our attention spans are being killed. Like we need dopamine in everything that we're consuming. There's no long fuse. Like it's just the dynamic nature of artwork is being compressed into like something that is purely feeding an algorithm. It's kind of sad.
Do you feel that? Like, you know, like one of those people that like skip songs like halfway through, or like in 15 seconds, like they're listening to a song, they skip it halfway through. Like, do you notice that this takes over a little bit? Like your attention span gets shorter, or no?
Doug,
I think, yeah, I mean, I definitely think so. Like I'll be working with different artists and I kind of know when something to an extent is going to do well. Sometimes I'm like, God, like, why am I thinking that way? Like, I just know that people aren't going to wait a minute and a half to get to this amazing hook. And then you get there and it's like, oh, it's so good. Like, it's a bummer that so many people are not going to listen to this because it's so far along in the song.
Delayed music gratification.
Yeah.
And also, Andrew, something you said about like the mental capacity almost getting compressed. Also, like the actual quality of things is getting compressed, which as a producer and engineer, you know, these studios, these multi-million-dollar studios, they are making stuff to sound good on an earbud or on a laptop speaker. And it used to be like, we have to cut it on vinyl. When you're mastering a song for a vinyl record, there's like physical limitation. You know, the low end can't be too spatially wide or the needle will literally pop off the record. Certain things with the high end, it can actually, like the physical form, it has to be cut a certain way, where now things are just getting squeezed and the volume's getting louder. So like as a mastering engineer, you know, which the job of that essentially is like getting the song to sound ready across every sort of system. So streaming, and then, you know, nice headphones in your car, your stereo speaker. But all these artists just want things to be as loud as possible. And as you do that, it degrades the quality of the music. So in addition to the attention spans getting compressed, the actual like medium itself is getting compressed into this lower quality, less enjoyable form. When you listen to something on like good headphones and a nice system, like it will blow your mind if you actually like listen through like a really expensive, you'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't hear, you hear all these little details, all these things floating around, where 99% of people are just kind of hearing this like bass line in their earbud. So it's actually like messed with the actual art form itself too sonically.
Is
Why?
that sad? Sorry.
No.
It sounds sad. That sounds really sad.
Yeah, and that's like a big reason why I collect all this crap is like I make it more for my own, and like it sounds so good to me, and I know like, you know, a lot of stuff I make on here is just even like I won't even release it, but it's like this is why I got into all this, is crafting sound and, you know, the experience. So most people are just on their laptop, which is a big reason I'm got onto this venture for the virtual instrument. There is value in it as well. Another reason I'm like so addicted to the analog stuff is because it just sounds so rich compared to every, you know, and I still, someone will send me a song and I'll like listen to it on my phone, you know, because it's just, that's what I have right there.
Yeah, it's like you're deep in this space, like refining and honing and creating art. And the reality is that most listeners are like listening through like one earbud while they're taking a shit, or they're like rushing to work because they're late and they're stressed and their life is miserable and they're streaming it and they're not even paying attention. Like it's, you know, the reality of like the consumption versus the reality of the creator is interesting from a music context today. One question I had related to that, like you said that artists ask you to make something really loud. Like you're an artist and you acknowledge this kind of change of the industry and the art form in terms of like everything being compressed and losing kind of some of this art integrity, but artists are still asking you to make things louder and to push towards this compressed audio direction. Like why is that?
They want to be competitive. They want, if they're listening to a playlist and their song comes on next, they don't want the volume to jump down. But something interesting, everybody should try this. So on Spotify, there's a preference for audio normalization. And essentially what they do is make everything equal. It's like -14, some decibel. I forget the exact level that they're measuring, but they normalize it so it's all consistent. If you disable that, you actually hear the final mastered level of music. So if you turn that off and listen to a playlist, you're going to hear things fluctuate. Things that sound good are going to sound even better. They'll sound bigger. So there are even limitations. Like in the last few years when I'm mastering and someone asks for something to be loud, I'll be like, hey, Spotify's just going to make this quieter. So it's actually a detriment to make it louder because it's going to ruin the sound. If you make it quieter, it's going to sound better. That you're going to have more dynamics, it's going to sound fuller. But ultimately, you know, so many people are listening with normalization and then things go on, you know, obviously radio is changing. I mean, a real test of like how something sounds is when it gets played on the radio and you're like, oh crap, they're really compressing everything there. But most people just don't want to fall short and they want to sound competitive. And I will usually give my opinion, and there's certain levels where like, I'm not going to make it louder than this because I don't want to put my name on this because it's going to sound worse. Like my recommendation is put it here. Spotify is going to do what they do with it. But check that out next time you're listening. Disable normalization and just like listen to the actual volume changes and dynamics of everything.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. That's interesting and a hot tip for sure.
I mean, Spotify for me has definitely changed the way that I listen to music. Or maybe it wasn't Spotify. Maybe it was like pirating music back with Napster. Was it Napster? And then, Napster and the single tracks instead of the whole albums. And in preparation for this, I was listening to something and this guy said, when was the last time you listened to a whole album? And I was trying to think, when was the last time I listened to an album end to end?
It's funny because I still like almost exclusively listen to albums. Even if I'm not listening to the whole thing, I'll just put on an album. I'll listen to 6 songs or whatever. I never listen to playlists. Doug?
Oh, wow. Okay.
I do both for my own, like just staying competitive in my industry. I'll listen to a lot of singles, but also like when I'm listening for enjoyment. I mean, we have a sick vinyl stereo setup, cassette deck, like some speakers from the 70s. Like we're really listening to records, like actual records most of the
Mm,
time. Outside of that, I listen to a full album on my system, like in my nice speakers and headphones. It's the same way. It's like there's an experience of creating an album. It's much more intentional for the artist. Certain songs that you may not make sense or may not hit as hard on their own. When you hear it in context, you're like,
yeah,
okay, that's why
yeah.
this song is supposed to be there.
And I used to listen to music just to listen to music, and now music is like I'm doing this and listening to music, and it's completely different. I can't remember how long ago, but a month ago or something, and I just said I'm just going to sit and listen to some music, something that I used to listen to all the time, and it was emotional. It wasn't. I will say I did have a short stunt in my teenage years as a juggler. I will put that out there.
I'm excited for our future Juggalo episode where we come with the face paint and everything.
No way. They're still releasing stuff. It's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't listen to it now.
No, sure, you listen to it. You talk
No,
to
no,
me.
I couldn't listen to the new stuff. I wouldn't. It's just all the old stuff I still know the lyrics to from when I was a teenager.
Fair.
Yeah.
I do want to get into the VST, but just a couple more things on this kind of streaming wars Spotify front. Doug, have you I've seen some talk. There's like a podcast. I think it's like I saw clips from like Joe Budden's podcast talking about this a little bit. Like there seems to be a new trend emerging where artists are going directly to Instagram to release, like big artists. Kanye West did it, J. Cole did it. I think during the whole Kendrick Drake beef, a few of those songs were first dropped on Instagram. And this is, for major label artists to be doing this, is much different than a year ago, where kind of the first place that an artist goes to drop their music is to these big streamers who they have these deals with. Everyone's making their money. But now they're going right to Instagram. Have you noticed this trend at all?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, it was a few years ago when, you'd be waiting for an album and you knew it was going to drop at midnight on this platform or exclusive to Apple Music at whatever time. I mean, a lot of these artists don't really need the platforms. The platforms need them, like J. Cole's and Kanye. They don't need Spotify. And I think another part of it is like the immediacy of the reaction. In Spotify, you don't get that sort of real-time engagement. Things don't go it's almost like the virality as well. Like, not that they need it, but it's like you can get the initial reaction in something that's not just a counter of streams. You could see comments and shares, and it's really just like the social network component probably feels better as an artist to like see the reaction in all these different forms versus just a number increasing. That's kind of my perception of it. I think it's probably more exciting as well. And that's like, it's like meeting their fans where they are. I think they're already there. So you might as well do it in a way that it could probably get even bigger than if it was just on one platform and, relying on sharing through Spotify. Everybody's on Instagram and all that.
Yeah, that is a great take. It's maybe it's like one step closer to this future of like kind of peer-to-peer relationships with artists and their audience, which we're blockchain people. Doug, we have an NFT project. Obviously, Cody, this started as a Web3 podcast, and
You just never want to talk about Web3.
yeah, but I like that take, Doug, of like it's a step closer to your audience, really, and that immediacy of reaction. Just another, just because I crunched some numbers on this, and I don't know how fully accurate this is, but there is potential to make more money from Instagram streams than from Spotify and from YouTube. It depends on the program, because like Instagram incentivizes larger creators with higher payouts. Spotify kind of does the same thing. So there's like not so much transparency here, but assuming Kanye West has one of these deals that he's getting paid more because he's Kanye West, he could have made from 10 million streams on a video, he could have made anywhere between $10,000 and $200,000. And it's probably more towards the upper range for someone like Kanye West, I would imagine. Whereas Spotify, it's $30,000 to $50,000. YouTube, it's $10,000 to $100,000. So there's more revenue potential on Instagram, theoretically.
It might be that like beginning spike that Doug was talking about, like the virality. They might also do side deals. It's like, okay, we're gonna release on Instagram, and Instagram maybe even pays them for that. I mean, I could see that the guys would want that to happen because so many shares, so much. and also building a relationship with the artist. Like if you share an artist that I don't know, and I see it and I play the short or play the reel, and then I go, oh, I like that, and then I follow them. That's kind of like that's a more important action. That the artist would prefer that action to happen than just one stream on Spotify. So maybe but maybe the long tail goes over to Spotify because it gets added to playlists and people's liked music lists and whatever.
Yeah, well, now Spotify has a deal with Instagram. They're rolling out some integration. So if you find some music you like on Instagram on a reel, you can add it to a Spotify playlist right from inside of Instagram. I'm not sure if that feature is live everywhere, but that integration is here or coming based on some news I saw.
And not meaning to bring this in even deeper, but it's going to be fascinating, like for when albums or songs go like gold or platinum, like the industry has been having to evolve what the definition of that is. It used to be like actually album sales, and then it had to go to streaming. So as like the ecosystem and like these delivery mechanisms change, it's going to be interesting to see how that catches up. And it's also weird. There's like a whole, like award show competitive component to these top musicians as well. But it'll be interesting to see how, if more of these drops happen outside of the traditional methods, how these sort of recognitions, even like, Grammys and those sort of stuff change based on how consuming habits change.
Yeah, especially when you start to consider like the bodification of all this stuff, because so much can be manipulated. And then you could, just like this AI guy, like he just botted the fuck out of his AI music, made a lot of money off of it. I know that other people are doing the same with their real music. Not that AI music is not real, but you know what I'm saying. So we've kind of talked about some of this crazy state of the music industry, and you have been very kind of intuitive and reactive, like for lack of a better term, to these conditions as an artist, and you've kind of kickstarted your journey on this new kind of monetization method, new creative adventure with a virtual instrument. And this virtual instrument is called the Holy Trinity. What's Holy Trinity? Why did you build it? What can people expect from it?
Sure. Yeah, I guess to start, so VST is like, I think virtual studio technology is the definition. I think it was developed in like 1995 or 6, essentially a way to have digital signal processing and like simulating hardware digitally. So I've always wanted to build a VST. I use a lot of them. So anything from like a synthesizer, a drum machine, to tape machine emulations, like any sort of hardware processing can be done digitally now as well. And I've, studios you go to will have hundreds of different plugins to choose from. One, it's way more convenient. You don't have to like recall settings and restore things. Tubes fry, you have to replace stuff. You could have multiple instances. So if you own one tape machine, you can only run that through one thing in their studio. But if you have the plugin for them, you could put that tape machine on every single track. So there's a lot of benefits that come. A lot of studios are shifting more just straight up digital with a blend of like a hybrid hardware as well. So I use a lot of plugins. I've always wanted to make one, but I had no idea how to do it. I've been collecting and restoring keys and synths for the last like 10 years or so. And this 3 behind me, actually, the Rhodes, the Juno, and the Moog, like the Holy Trinity. I didn't actually come up with that. I was working on the plugin and someone said Holy Trinity. I'm like, oh, that's actually the perfect name for it. But it is my Holy Trinity of hardware. It's kind of like the full spectrum of the synth sound is there in this setup. So I was like, how cool would it be to take that and sample it and blend it so it's like a brand new instrument that has the combination of the best of each element of each of those, and then have it wherever I go. So 1, it would be cool to make something new. 2, when I'm working somewhere else, I can't bring, like the Rhodes is really, really heavy. It's got to be 150 pounds, something like that. You could fact check me on that, but it's very heavy. You don't really bring those to different studios. So 1, I wanted to bring my sounds with me, and then I wanted to create this thing. So there's a producer I saw on Instagram that was using this platform called Decent Sampler. And I saw that he was like coding his own instruments. So he had this acoustic piano and he sampled. So he recorded individual keys, then coded it into an instrument. So when he played it through a MIDI controller, again, the MIDI controller is just keys that signal the computer to play something. It sounded identical to his actual big piano. So I looked into the coding language and I was like, okay, I think I could figure this out. There's a bunch of tutorials. It's all like open source. It's just this guy that created it. There's a whole developer guy. So I started to like build a really rudimentary version of it, figured out how to make like it look like something. And I started by recording just like 4 keys on the Rhodes and then mapping it out across the keyboard. And I was like, oh, it works. So figured that out. And then I downloaded a couple other decent sampler instruments and like extracted the code from it and like saw how they did certain things. And I really pushed the limits of it. Nobody has really blended all these. Usually what people will do is like just take the Rhodes and I'm just going to make a virtual replica of the Rhodes. And I was like, okay, well, I want to do the Rhodes, 2 different sounds on the Rhodes. I want to do 3 sounds on the Juno and 2 on the Moog. So I found a way to like blend between them. And then it was essentially spending months figuring out which sounds I wanted to be on there that all work together. And then it all happened.
Wow. So is this done now, or is this a work in progress still?
Yeah, it will be done the end of this week. There's like one small bug I have to fix, and I've just been working on the Shopify page and all the logistics of the download itself. Yeah, it's been a little over 4 months I've been working on it. I spent probably a month just figuring out how to make it sound like I wanted, like being able to blend it and make the UI. Another 2 months getting the sounds. I like sampled a bunch of sounds and then they didn't really work together. So I resampled a bunch because it's literally going through and sampling every single key and then different velocities. So the Fender Rhodes, if you dig in on it or lay off, it has a different tone. So I wanted it to feel and sound like an actual Rhodes. If I just did one velocity, it would sound very artificial. So the Rhodes, I recorded every single key in 6 different velocities and then mapped that out. So depending on what intensity you play, it was actually replicating the feel of the Rhodes. And it has the quirks that my Rhodes has. It's not perfect. So now I pretty much have it, one, like just for me, like I haven't even used these in months because I just like have this plugin that sounds awesome and I can just stack them up and blend things. It's pretty badass.
Did you leave any keys off? One you don't like?
There's a few. My Rhodes has a couple like weird, almost dead sort of keys that I didn't feel like fixing. I could have gone under the hood and like actually fix them up, but technically you don't have to record every single key and you can like map it. Yeah. So there's a few that I left out, but the big thing was like the velocity on that. And then to take it a step further, because I had to make this crazy difficult for myself, is obviously I love tape. So I put in a tape mode. So when you flip a switch, in addition to all the sampling of 7 different patches, I re-recorded every single sample to my tape machine. And so there's a secondary sample set. So when you hit tape mode, all the settings you have flip to a different sample library that's all recorded off of tape. It's like literally, it could take hours to get something like that set up. So now it's, instead of having to, play something on the Rhodes, recorded the tape machine, I just flip a switch and it's already like on my actual tape machine. So that, and then I added on some like reverbs and different effects and stuff like that.
And what would a musician use this for? Like somebody coming in and they go to your page and they see it and they want to use the plugin?
Yeah, so it could be used in any DAW, digital audio workstation. So Pro Tools, Ableton, Logic, anything that you use to make music, any music production software. Majority of people don't have physical keyboards. They're mostly using these virtual models. Like there's dozens of models of Fender Rhodes out there. So essentially you buy it and then you could use it to make music like you would on a regular piano. You could use it in songwriting, production, sound design, really anything. It's just having a synthesizer on your computer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think this approach to monetizing your craft is very cool, and it's valuable for other artists and musicians in the way that maybe other monetization methods aren't. And over the last several years with Instagram, we've seen all of these producers kind of rise to prominence with things like sample packs and VSTs. It's still early days for this. I mean, you said it's going to be finished in the next week. So we'll have to do a catch-up podcast in the future to learn more. But based on this development process and kind of the beta testing you've been doing, what have you learned from this process? What advice would you give to another musician who's creating a VST?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing, like I didn't start making this to make money. Actually, I just like wanted, I mean, my whole sonic brand is like my sound. You know, I've been crafting this what I think is a unique sound. My specialty is tone. You know, it's like less about songwriting. I'm still a songwriter, but what I specialize in is my production, and I wanted to make something that sounded incredible. There's so many different virtual instruments that I just don't think sound very good. So I was like, I could do this better. I know I can. And then it turned into, okay, I started building it and using it. I'm like, oh wow, this actually sounds incredible. It's super inspiring. I started making more music than ever. Then when I started giving it out for beta testing to some musicians and producers, they were all like, wow, like, damn, I don't have to buy a Rhodes. I don't have to buy a Juno. They're like, this is crazy. It's just automatically sounds insane right out of the box. So one, like, advice wise would be do something that's needed and like, I guess, try to push the boundary a little bit. Don't rush through it. You know, I'm doing this first one through Decent Sampler. My vision eventually is to partner with a plugin developer that can make my own like native plugin that's not through Decent Sampler. You would just download, you know, Doug's VST, something like that. But just like getting in there and starting to do it and then just making something that you would actually use. And for me, it's super exciting. One, I'm using it. It sounds great. I definitely have plans. I actually started building the next plugin already. Probably won't be done for a while, but I'm hoping to make a whole line of these, all of like personally curated off of like my favorite sounds. Like the Juno, there's, you know, hundreds of sounds within there. The plugin are my 3 absolute favorite sounds. So it's like continuing to curate and differentiate by like just being authentic instead of just doing what everybody else kind of wants.
And how has the early response been from your beta tester?
They love it. Yeah, it's been super positive. I've been a little slow on the marketing because I've just been really trying to get the plugin right, but I did, you know, made one reel because I've been teasing it for a while, for several months through my stories. I made like an official reel opening up to pre-orders, and I got a whole bunch of pre-orders on it. So right out, I'm going to be at least able to fund all the investment that went into it. And then, you know, going in on more of the targeted social media ads, going after people like myself, hopefully trying to get a lot more downloads on it. But most important to me is like people are like, this actually sounds incredible.
Yeah, it'll be sick once it starts to appear on some hit records. You get that Doug sauce all over the chart.
Yeah.
So where can people find you and more about the VST? We end these podcasts with kind of a rapid fire series of questions that I want to ask you.
Cool.
And there's so many things we didn't talk about, like your work as a product marketer at Reverb, which I think is interesting. Your experience recently working at an art gallery and working with art galleries. I think we could maybe save that for a future conversation, just to be conscious for time. But
I also wanted to ask about like some ideas on how artists can get paid over and above the streaming, but maybe we can think of that and have another conversation about it in the future.
Doug, do you have any thoughts on that question, like monetization methods for artists beyond streaming?
Yeah, I think just the direct to consumer model and like building your own community and platform, I think that's just really the way to go, is like building the community. It's tough. I mean, I still am like struggle to make money. Like the reason I worked at an art gallery and got into product marketing is because I wasn't making enough money off of my music. So I'm still scratching the surface there, but I think it's expanding into areas that are still like within your brand and really just getting a community built, and trying to go to direct as much as possible, and like still release stuff on Spotify to have it out there, but don't like rely on that to be your income.
And do you think that people are willing to pay for it, like the average music listener? Do you think that because like there's certain music that I listen to over and over again. I love it. I'm not really that. I mean, I listen to a bit of new music, but I just listen to the same shit I've listened to since I was a teenager, not ICP. And I wouldn't mind a reminder to send some money somehow or support them somehow, because they've given me years of enjoyment. But I think that we just forget and we don't, and we pay our subscription, goes on my credit card. I don't know. Do you think that the average person would pay more?
It's tough. Like not everybody for just the straight up music, but it's, you know, anytime that you go to a show, a concert, and someone is selling merch, like if you listen to them, buy the merch, buy a t-shirt, buy whatever, like, because that's really how they're they're making the money and funding all that. I think it's, merch is a good idea. People like to say that they would support it, but I think it's like, okay, how many artists do you listen to every month? Do you want to give each of them $10 a month? Probably not at the end of the day. So maybe some of them, yes. And I think it's worth like offering things. That's why I also think it's like, what else can you give them? More behind the scenes content, like really just build this community and a different angle to like bring people more closely involved. And I think once you start doing that, people are more willing to help fund it.
There's also like Bandcamp is a good example of like a better method to support artists as opposed to Spotify. So like Cody, if there are any artists you love, like go check out, see if they have a Bandcamp. I'm not sure exactly how the revenue model works, but Bandcamp is paying more to artists if you support them there than Spotify. It's also not a streaming platform per se. You can stream music there, but it's really meant to like download music files, right, Doug? Maybe you can speak.
It's something like, you're pretty much paying the processing and sale fee. Like if you sell a song for $1, you get something like 70 cents. That's for one song. If you compare that to a fraction of a penny on a stream, might as well spend $1 and have it go to the artist. So Bandcamp's definitely great. Or if anyone has I think like James Blake or somebody set up his own sort of direct to consumer model. It'll be interesting to see if more artists do that. But yeah, anytime there is an opportunity to pay that the artist is promoting and you want to support them, that's always the move.
That's where I see everything going with Web3 and NFTs is like this kind of direct to consumer model where people can essentially have their own communities and their own gated content and direct access and ability to transact with their audience with no middleman. And I think the use case of these things for music is, as strong as any other use case that people are exploring. One other related thing while we're talking about it. So like Patreon is another strong example of platforms that are helping prioritize the creator. And Jack Conte is the CEO of that platform. Cody, you smirk every time I say his name. We've talked about him a couple times, but like in preparation for this podcast, I was looking into a little bit of what he focuses on because he's kind of been preaching the death of the follower, which goes into this whole conversation of like algorithms on social media platforms are not even feeding your work to your followers. It's like he's very much a proponent of like creators are forced into this position of having to create for the algorithm now. But something he prides himself and Patreon on, and a future that he envisions is the Patreon model creating this kind of creator middle class. So it's like, in the Spotifys of the world where the big mainstream artists are the ones gobbling up most of the money made there, Patreon builds this creative middle class where around half of their payment volume goes to creators earning between $12,000 and $120,000 a year. So it's kind of this it's a different economic class of creators, but it provides opportunities to that class of creators to really earn a living. Maybe they're not becoming the wealthiest artists in the world, but that's not everyone's goal. And it's more opportunity than other platforms. So I think Patreon serves as a good example of like where to support artists you love. So Cody, if you find your ICP $5 a month Patreon.
Yeah, they probably have it. They figured out how to monetize those guys.
I think they're more of an OnlyFans.
I wouldn't want to see what they fucking put out. Oh my God. I can't believe I went through that phase. I went through the phase as a teenager. My parents would have no idea. They would be shocked if they knew what I was listening to.
I think they're cool guys. ICP.
The thing I liked about them was that they were saying such dark stuff, but with this like happy vibe. And I know it was off-putting, and I really like lyrics. So I really like rap and lyrics, and they were just so clever with their lyrics. And it was horrible shit, but yeah. Anyway, I don't have to justify it, all right?
Yeah, no, you don't. I'm sorry for putting you on the spot with ICP. Well, Doug, is there anything else you want to leave people with before I kind of jump into this rapid fire question round? Is there anything at all?
Yeah, just I guess one additional thing to how to support artists. I think even just like sharing, if you can't pay, share it because someone in your community may pay. And, it's like, if you think about even this podcast, it's like, how long it took to put this together. Music, sometimes people are working on a song for a year. So it means a lot for the artist to share it and then hopefully get it into, to more ears. If you can't financially pay, hit that share button. It definitely helps.
Yeah, absolutely. These days, as we talked about earlier, it's like you're feeding the algorithm, so it's just as I mean, it's not just as valuable, but not only are you putting it to your audience where maybe they pay for it, but you're just telling these platforms, hey, this is something I want to share, so go show it to more people.
For sure.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Cool. So let's jump into these rapid fires. I like to say, don't think at all. Just lose all critical components of your mind and just answer quickly. And yeah, let's get it. What did you eat this morning?
Eggs, avocado, and kimchi. I'm trying to lose some weight, so
Microbiome.
yeah.
What's your spirit animal?
Cat.
What music do you listen to while you're working, not on music?
The fucking deep focus Spotify playlist because I can't deal with lyrics. Or Gia Margaret's Romantic Piano.
Nice. Podcasts do you listen to?
Beautiful Anonymous by Chris Gethard.
Oh, nice. He's still making that?
Yep. Been listening to every one since it came out.
Got to get back on that. What do most people misunderstand about being a professional musician?
That we're sad and lonely.
Who is currently the most underrated musician?
Me no.
Who is the most overrated musician? Talk that shit.
Yeah, I'm trying to be careful here. I don't know. I'm like pretty open to most music.
Swift.
I love Taylor Swift.
Oh, damn.
She is absolutely incredible. Songwriting, the production, slap.
I mean, a safe answer here is P. Diddy, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely P. Diddy. Yep.
Yeah, happy to save you there. Will AI destroy humanity?
Yes.
Is AI currently a threat for musicians right now at this point in time?
Yes.
What's your spiciest take this week?
The right shoe before the left.
I think that's political.
It's not.
Okay. What's the most fucked up topic in your algorithm on any platform? I keep getting these murder videos on Instagram or on X, and I'm not subscribed to the accounts.
Honestly, I get a lot of cat content.
The spirit animal, baby.
Yeah. They see you. They truly see you for who you are.
Yeah. And since I started my business, I've been getting all these fucking solopreneur, how to, scale your agency in 12 weeks, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that stuff's fucked up. Buy a house so you can sell it and buy 10 more houses, and then sell those 10 more houses, and you've got $3 billion. Follow and
Before you're 25.
Yeah.
Pay for my online course.
That stuff is, and the short form of it too just makes it even.
Yeah. No substance, just all bullshit. Finally, what is more important, fame or legacy? Classic. Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much. It's nice to get to know
Thank
you.
you. Also, when probably next week, Doug.dugdot.com is where the plugin will be for sale.
Oh, cool.
Hell yeah.
How to get a plug.
Doug.com. Yeah, nice.
Doug.com.
Get that .com, baby.
Hell yeah. I'll stop this recording. Really nice. I enjoyed that.
Don't stop it though.
Okay, because this is where we get the juice. We learned from our last recording.
Yeah, our last podcast, he turned off the recording and then we got some real good shit.
Yeah, then he started talking about identity politics and all this controversial shit.
Yeah. Supported Trump's very heavenly open.
I don't remember that part.
I'm just trying to
spice.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get something.
Yeah, Doug, I spared you of our political conversations. Apparently, from these 14 or 15 episodes, Cody says I'm a Trump supporter. So
he's manga. How do you say it? MAGA.
I'm not MAGA.
Why have the hats turned black? Is that just Elon's influence?
I think so. He said he's the dark MAGA lord.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
No, I noticed that Trump was wearing a black one the other day too. They're iconically red. I don't know why they would do that. Maybe
it's also crazy, like how much it influences you all, and you're not even in the States.
No,
I'm
Australian, and I know way more about it than Australian politics. I don't even know who the Australian Prime Minister is. There you go.
It's because you want to pump your bags. That's really what it is.
No, I just think it has more. Yeah, okay. It has more effect on the global community, the online community, which I'm maybe more a part of than I am the Australian. So, yeah. It will be very interesting. It's only a few days away. So. Yeah.
I mean, I hate all of them. I'm not. But I do think Trump is going to win. I don't.
At least it'll be more interesting for a few years, unless it's the end of the world, which is one of my friends or one of the guys we had on the podcast, Doug, Bob. He thinks that it's the end if Trump's in. Like he'll never give up. We'll have another Putin, something like an American. He's like he's so scared.
I mean, tension is just like even outside of politics is shit's just crazy in the States I mean, fuck, even going to the grocery store, can't like leave without spending $100. It's like everything is so expensive. Just like the people have changed a lot. There's like way less patience overall. Like, people are a lot more aggressive on the roads, and I live in like a very chill area, and like it's can
Where do
definitely
you live?
feel the energy. I live in New Mexico.
That's not actually in Mexico, though.
Correct. Our license plates say United States of America on them because
Oh,
that's how forgotten New Mexico is.
do they have like a little phrase on your number plates, like the sunny state or the
Yeah, we're like the chili capital.
chili?
Yeah, and
It says the chili capital on all your
Is-
license.
no, we're the land of enchantment is New Mexico.
Land of in-
So actually,
Yeah, the chili.
Albuquerque, there are more Netflix shows and movies filmed in Albuquerque than LA now. It's like one of the
Oh,
biggest movie scenes. It's shifted. Breaking Bad started it, and then now they have a massive Netflix has a massive studio in Albuquerque.
Yeah, okay. I thought you were going to say we have the most amount of Netflix users. That would be different,
No.
darker. When you pay for stuff, do you pay with cash or like tap and go or card or
What's tap and go? Like a
like on your
gift
phone
card?
or on a card? You just like you don't even have to swipe the card or anything. It's just. Or
I mostly use
with the phone.
my card. Yeah, tapping my card.
The payment method changes things. I know it's just one little tiny thing in a long line of stuff, but it's like very convenient to tap and go and stuff. But I think that extra few seconds at the register, getting your money out and handing it to someone and them handing you change.
What makes you ask that?
I think it changes the environment out there when you're dealing with people on those kind of like short interactions at the store or waiting in line or what have you. I just think those little tiny, because it's like that's $74, okay, and then you walk away, you don't even get the receipt, you don't get your change, I don't know, I just think that those little things add up. And yeah,
That's why we have Trump.
no, I just mean he said that like people are when he goes like they shorter attention and they're like maybe more rude or not as friendly. That's what I thought he said.
Yeah, not as patient.
I wonder if not as patient. And I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Like, as like spending money, like buying something on Amazon, I'll like buy that shit, no questions. Even like any sort of thing online, it's so much easier for me to spend money. But then I'll go to the store and spend a fraction of the money, and I'm like thinking about it a lot more. Just weird.
Yeah, it's like Ethereum on NFTs.
I feel that though now. I really feel that.
Yeah. So Doug, you think Trump's gonna win? You're in the thick of it over there. What are your vibes down in New Mexico?
I mean, New Mexico, hell no. I don't think so. But it's gonna be very close. I mean, it's just interesting. It's like, it's like where that sentiment changes depending on where I'm spending my time. Like being out in public here, it's like Santa Fe is a very liberal city. Certain places online, I may have a different opinion, but it's also crazy how you just go from one app to another and your whole perspective changes. So that's what's also like, who fucking knows? I have no idea. And it's also like, I went and voted. Like, our votes don't even matter really at the end of the day. Like, the public vote doesn't even really mean anything. So I don't know enough. I mean, I try to disconnect myself a little bit from politics to an extent. There's certain things that are important to me, but I have so much generalized anxiety in general. That didn't make sense, but I have so much generalized anxiety that if I start thinking about that stuff, I'll spiral. So I'd rather just like smoke weed and make beats and watch Love is Blind.
I think that's the healthier option. Love is Blind.
Is that the autism show?
That show is wild. No, it's on Netflix. They don't meet each other. They don't see each other. They just talk in these chambers and they get married without seeing each other.
It's crazy.
I mean, that's the future with the metaverse, right? It's like we'll have tons of wives and we'll have AI wives and husbands, and
I think that'll be more popular.
Yeah.
You're thinking of Love on the Spectrum.
Okay.
Also a good show. Yeah, Haley's got me hooked on all that.
Nice.
I'll like sit down and start watching one. I'm like, I'm not gonna watch this, and then
end
of the episode, I'm like, all right, the joints rolled. Let's keep this going.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't seen any of those shows. I gotta my love of reality TV is like 10 years old at this point, I think.
That's good. It's hard for me to like not. I'm always like working on stuff, and I always have all these new ideas, and I'm trying to always do shit that if I don't do that, I just go crazy because I'm just like never not working. Been trying really hard to like find the balance between all that, but it's tough.
Andrew's good at that.
It's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good at the work-life balance thing.
I haven't talked to my family. This is the first time I've talked to my family in a month.
And it was because of work.
And it was because of work.
I mean, that's our family, though. You know, it's like the same with
Yeah.
that's our DNA.